Hi, I'm Randy Altman with Post Perspective. We're here with Bryan Godwin from Pixomondo. Bryan, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So Bryan, we're here to talk a little bit about the visual effects industry, trends, the whole bit. But first, let's start with you. You joined Pixomondo 8 months ago. Now, I know that you have been an industry veteran. Visual effects has been what you specialize in. But let's talk about what it's been like coming to a new studio in the middle of a pandemic during a very, very odd time.
Yeah, I started at Pixo in January and took over as head of studio for Los Angeles and also Vancouver. And you're right, it has been a really interesting time. The past year and a half has been a wild ride, I think, for everybody in visual effects, with production freezes and contracts pausing and all of the things that happened during the heat of COVID. But I think it's almost a little bit crazier how things are now that we're coming out of COVID. I mean, as you mentioned, I've been doing this a long time. I got my start in the industry in, I think, 1998, 1997, something like that. And this is the busiest I've seen visual effects globally ever. It is an unprecedented amount of work that is happening right now. And it certainly has been, with its own challenges that have come with it.
Now, what do you attribute that to? Just more TV series, streaming series that are looking for high quality visual effects, just like the films?
Absolutely. I think it is in big part due to the advance of streaming networks and the sort of streaming network wars that are happening, where, it used to be there was kind of like, okay, you've got your cable channels and they want really high quality work, and then you've got Netflix and they want really high quality work. But then all of a sudden, we have Disney Plus on the scene, and we have Apple on the scene. But not only that, I mean, there's countless streaming channels at this point. There might be more streaming channels than traditional channels. So I think a lot of it is that rush to get to market, and there's more competition in the marketplace. But I think we're also experiencing, the log jam that piled up during COVID. There were a lot of projects that were in development that couldn't shoot, that started being able to shoot earlier this year. And we're seeing all of them happen at once. And everybody needs visual effects, and everybody wants to finish their project right now.
Sure, I bet. So how is it with Pixo? Are people back in the studio? Are they working remotely? Combination?
It's a combination, and it depends on the location too. Pixomondo is a global company. We have 6 active studios right now across the globe, and the COVID situation is a little bit different depending on the location. Here in Los Angeles, well, at least until recently, our numbers have been really, really good, and they've lifted all restrictions. And we've probably had about a third of the office in relatively full time. We've left it optional for now, just because the last thing I want to do is put policy into place until we have a certainty that we can move forward with that policy. I don't want to roll out policies and then roll them back and roll them forward. We were looking towards trying to get people in a little bit more often on a regular basis, but with the mask mandates coming back in, we've decided to just take a breath, and see how things develop in the next 3 to 6 months, and take it from there. Our European studios are, I believe, completely remote, and as is most of Canada as well.
That makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about some of the technologies that you guys use in order to make that remote workflow happen.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see, even before I got to Pixo, how quickly everyone was able to pivot to remote work. There's a whole suite of potential remote access type of things out there, from TGX, RGS. All of them are all PCOIP based tools that allow us to connect to workstations remotely. We use a bunch of different ones depending on the location, but Teradici seems to be the industry standard with some of the best performance, mostly because that's a hardware and software solution instead of software only. And they really do have a leg up, I think, on the combination if you invest in the full package for it. So we use that for the most part across the board. And then for communication, we use Teams from Microsoft, which is a pretty good product. I have done the remote thing with the Google Suite previously, and then at another facility we were using Zoom. They're all very similar. I think the important thing that we've learned is that this does work. I think the sort of verdict is out still on whether it works better or worse. I think it's better at some things and worse at others. But it certainly works. We're making movies, we're making TV shows, we're getting things done, things are being delivered. Studios have stayed busy and solvent somewhat miraculously through all of this.
Speaking of projects, can you name some that you've either recently completed or working on?
Yeah, we're wrapping up the Orville here in LA. There's a big project that's coming to an end soon in Canada called Moonfall with Roland Emmerich. There's so many things going on. We just started on the Game of Thrones prequel that's mostly happening in Germany. It's very, very busy, and there's a bunch of unannounced projects as well. I would say one of the bigger projects that's happening that's most interesting are the Star Trek series that we're shooting in Toronto on our virtual production stage. Pixo has leaned in very heavily in servicing end-to-end virtual production, not just content creation, not just previs, but actually building full stages for our clients and then servicing them all the way through the production.
That sort of fits into the last question I wanted to ask, which was trends, and virtual production has to be a huge one. How do you see that progressing going forward?
It's probably the most exciting thing about my new job here at Pixo is getting to be able to participate in the virtual production projects that we're doing. It's a great technology. It's advancing rapidly and changing very, very quickly. I do think it's here to stay. I do not think that it's a one-hit wonder. It works too well. It really kind of came into its own because of COVID, because we didn't want to travel so much and we didn't want people having to get on airplanes and things like that. People are not going to want to get on airplanes even when it's safe to travel again. It's a pain in the butt and it's expensive, so if you can go and scan a location and do your pickup shots on a stage here in LA, your talent's not going to want to do the other option and go fly to Croatia or wherever they shot before. So I think it's a trend that's here to stay. We have really dug in deep on this, and what we've found is being able to own the whole system from beginning to end gives really superior results. Every stage is different. Every stage has a different configuration. And when you're involved in the design aspect and the build aspect, you know exactly what to leverage to be able to bring stuff to screen. And most importantly, the whole goal with in-camera visual effects is to get final pixels in camera. And that's still a goal that everybody's really chasing, and I'm happy to say on our Star Trek shows, we're getting like 90% in-camera finals, which has been just a tremendous effort by the team out there. They're really killing it.
That's pretty remarkable, actually. It's crazy. Well, Bryan,
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll one day meet up in person.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Randy. I appreciate being here. Thanks for thinking of me. And this was great.